Let's go for it!
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host here at the Dark Stuff channel. Thanks a lot for checking out my latest video. I've got a bunch of new vinyl to show off, as well as some new release CDs of some records that I think are really, really great that I've gotten recently for the radio show that you're probably familiar with, but I'll put my 2 cents in on those releases anyways. Let's go ahead and start with this. This is the new album from Boss Hogg, and I know it doesn't say anything on the cover. The cover's completely blank here. It's one of these, you know, it opens up like this, and then there's the record inside. It's called Brood X. Okay, and there's Christina Martinez there on the back. She's the lead singer. For those not in the know, Boss Hogg is the band featuring the husband and wife duo of John Spencer and Christina Martinez. John Spencer, of course, from the John Spencer Blues Explosion. Previously from Pussy Galore. Christina Martinez, also a one-time member of Pussy Galore. But Boss Hogg was always her kind of primary thing. And then a while ago, you know, her and John Spencer had kids, and they basically, it seemed like Boss Hogg sort of retired. This is the first new album in 17 years. Their last album was an album called Whiteout that came out in 2000. I do have the earlier Boss Hogg stuff, and I think their self-titled record on Geffen from about 95, 96 or so when it came out is still exceptional. They do an Ike and Tina Turner cover on there called I Idolize You. That's great. But anyways, we're talking about the new record. The new record is really good. It reminds me, it has like a PJ Harvey feel to it. So it's almost like less sort of grungy, noisier Boss Hogg mixed with a little bit of a PJ Harvey feel. And I think that's a positive development because I really like PJ Harvey, and a combination of those two. That's about the best I could say for as far as the description of the record goes. I don't know what their status is for touring. Again, I saw them in the mid-90s, the same as when that last album was out. They were phenomenal, you know. I've seen John Spencer recently with the Blues Explosion, and it was still a quite enjoyable show. The dude is just a phenomenal performer, so I imagine seeing Boss Hogg again would be pretty good. But anyways, that's Brood X is the new one from Boss Hogg that I picked up. Okay, I was killing time before an appointment for work, and I went to a Barnes & Noble, and they had a little vinyl store in the Barnes & Noble, and I looked in there, and the prices were just fucking ridiculous. But I did see this. This is the Kiss Destroyer Resurrected. It was pricey. It was like $25, but I was told by somebody that these are out of print. So just the ones that are out in circulation are all that's going to be there. So I decided to go ahead and get it. This came out in 2012. And of course, it's the remix of the Destroyer album. So if you notice, the artwork is slightly different. Okay. Bob Ezrin got the master tapes. He's the one who originally did the production and the mix back in 76. In like 2011, 2012, remixed the album, and they re-released it in a limited form called Destroyer Resurrected. Now, many people feel like Destroyer is Kiss's best studio album. I'm not one of those people who think that. I think it's among their best studio albums. I don't think it's the best. I always thought the production lacked a little punch. I thought it sounded too soft and a little wimpified in certain parts. I also don't think content-wise it's Kiss's best record. I mean, yeah, you got Detroit Rock City, you got King of the Nighttime World, you've got Flaming Youth, okay? You've got Shout It Out Loud, you got Do You Love Me, some of their best, most classic songs. But you also have two outright dogs, and that's Beth and Great Expectations, which are two of Kiss's worst songs from the original era. And so because of that, I don't always consider it ranking as high, because I think Rock and Roll Over is better. I think Love Gun is much better. I think Hotter Than Hell and the debut are both better in terms of studio albums from the original lineup. So what's different between this new one, this Resurrected, and the original? Not a ton, I'll be honest with you. You get a little booklet that I showed you with an essay from Bob Ezrin sort of explaining the process and how he had to call up Gene and get permission and all of this, and he reacquainted himself with Paul, became friendly with them. Apparently they've had a strained relationship over the years. You know, Bob Ezrin being the producer responsible for their most successful studio album, Destroyer, and also responsible for their least successful studio album, and that would be Music from the Elder. Okay, so Kiss has very mixed feelings about working with him. A lot of people talk about the 1992 album Revenge as though it were in league with the original lineup. I'm not one of those people. Okay, I listen to plenty of 80s Kiss. That's the era that I grew up in. I saw them live many times during that period up through the 90s and into that era, the Revenge era. But I don't think Revenge is some phenomenal album. I mean, I think Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up were the last really, really solid Kiss albums that they made. Okay, tunes are a song or two on each record after that, and that's about it, and that includes Revenge. But I'm off topic on this Destroyer Resurrected. So what's different about it? Well, the changes are very subtle. I do think the drums sound a whole hell of a lot better on this record. They have more kick, they're more powerful, and it's odd because I did read somewhere that Peter Criss was like really pissed off about this remix and was really unhappy with the whole project. He was writing it off. He's, this is terrible, this is stupid. Well, maybe it's because they didn't ask his permission or whatever, but the point is the drums do sound better. The guitars, do they sound a little better? Maybe they have a little bit more balls to them, but ultimately this was a polished studio record by a band that was only known live, and they struggled to capture that live sound, and they certainly didn't even try with Destroyer, but I think they got it back with Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun, where they really did find a better balance. Okay, a couple videos ago I told you about the upcoming Maha Music Festival, and that Run the Jewels is going to be the headliner, so I decided to go ahead and pick up the first Run the Jewels album. That's what this one is, from 2013. And I'd heard it digitally, but I'd never actually owned any Run the Jewels. I decided I would go ahead and get it. This one came on orange vinyl, and there's side one with them flipping you off, and then side two. So this is, in my view, they're pretty much the best new rap group to come out in the last couple of years. My taste in rap starts in the 80s from when I was a teenager and goes to about 92, 93, to maybe when The Chronic and that first Snoop Dogg album came out, Doggy Style. And then it's been pretty sporadic since then, you know? And that's just maybe a testament to my age. I just don't get into too much new rap that's come out since that time. There are exceptions, of course, but for the most part, my taste in rap ends at that point. These guys, while they don't sound retro, or they, you know, it's not just like a fat beat and some guy rhyming over it. There's a lot more to the production, but it does have an old school feel, and you can tell these guys are well versed in the music of, like, you know, EPMD, Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Run DMC, all the classic artists from the 80s and 90s.
The greatness they claim, not all not. We're those juggernauts, me, L, we hail like a young Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. Cash flow, car full of females, bad hoes. We in the DR, in it, fuck rapper boy getting out of line. I pray the preacher beat him to the goddamn.
Next up is a pretty obscure new local artist here in Omaha named Neela Lupa, and this is his album called Beginner's Guide. And this is supposedly a limited edition of 300 copies, and it's hand numbered and signed by Miwi there. Now, first of all, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, because I'm thinking Miwi La Lupa, okay? And I first heard of this guy because he was going around with Connor Oberst on his sort of solo acoustic tour that he was doing, and he was providing extra accompaniment. He's a multi-instrumentalist, so he plays a lot of instruments. Then I heard he had his own album because some of my friends and I get together monthly for our record night, where it's basically like six to 10 of us, depending on availability, where we get together at someone's house, usually my house, but it has been other people's houses. Everybody brings a couple of records, and somebody brought this album to the last record night and played it, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good, you know? It has a little bit of a Paul Simon, Graceland kind of a feel, or rhythm of, I think his next album was called Rhythm of Kings or Rhythm of something. Anyways, looked at it, Google that.
Can you hear the sound of the waves? I can hear it from here. I think I made it. Got another several weeks of this mayhem. It's a rat city. It's a luxury.
And I guess for those people that don't go back to Paul Simon, think of like Vampire Weekend maybe. It's got this like bright, punchy, like fun sort of pop feel, and it's good. It's only 7 songs. Again, it's credited as a label called Tiger Shrimp. So, but I've only seen it locally here, and again, it is hand numbered at 300 and signed from the artist. Okay, I also got this at Almost Music. This is the Best of the Scorpions Volume 2. And I've shown my Best of Scorpions Volume 1. I've talked in a couple of videos that I'm really into sort of exploring this band because I only knew them from like Rocky or No One Like You and Rocky Like a Hurricane from when I was a kid, when I was in like elementary school and junior high, when the Scorpions were at their commercial peak in the States, and I never looked backward. And I started looking back into some of the 70s Scorpion stuff, and I found that I was really liking it. It's actually pretty different. And I don't know whether it's the Uli John Roth factor, that he was the lead guitar player and he sometimes sang, or you know what the difference was. Maybe they just, you know, a band that's around for a really long time, you do kind of evolve in your sound. So this has tracks from the albums, let's see here, Tokyo Tapes, Fly to the Rainbow, In Trance, Virgin Killer, those 3. So Tokyo Tapes is the primary one because there's a lot of tracks on here. I picked this one up, Richard and Linda Thompson, and it's called Shoot Out the Lights, because I never see this one. This is from 1982. I never see this one just out in the wild. It's considered a classic album. Richard Thompson, of course, from the band Fairport Convention from the 60s and into the 70s. And he's never really had much commercial success in the United States. He's a phenomenal guitar player, kind of along the folky kind of rock lines. The reason I first encountered Richard Thompson's music is because of this song, Shoot Out the Lights. And it was because Bob Mould, on his early solo tours after Husker Du, the Workbook or Black Sheets of Rain era tour, used to do that song Shoot Out the Lights in his set.
Shoot out the lights. Shoot out the lights.
And instantly, you know, when I find an artist I like covering something that I'm unfamiliar with, I always try to seek that out and see who this artist is. I bought this album at the time, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when Bob Mould was doing the song. And at that point in time, I was like, oh, this is okay, but it didn't really, you know, do much for me at the time. So I kind of put that out of my mind and had forgotten about Richard Thompson. He's had a number of albums over the years, and sometimes I pick him up, sometimes I don't. You know, he's one of these guys, I want to like him a lot, but for some reason it never really grabs me. But then I was reading Bob Mould's autobiography here, See a Little Light, and in it he describes sort of that period that I was just describing, his early solo work when he just quit Husker Du, and he tells a story in the book about, this must have been 1988 or so. Husker Du was over. He was working on his first solo album, and he bought a house outside of Minneapolis in rural Minnesota, maybe an hour away, and he invited the guys from Soul Asylum, who he was good friends with, up to the house to hang out and to listen to some of his new music. And he was playing the new music, and apparently Dave Pirner made a comment to him and said, hey man, have you ever heard of a guy called Richard Thompson? And he had been listening to a lot of Richard Thompson at that point. And he started to get nervous that this music he was listening to was sort of almost ripping off, or his music he was making was almost ripping off Richard Thompson, because the first thing Dave Pirner thought was, hey, have you ever heard of this guy Richard Thompson? And now it's just sort of an anecdote. If you do listen to the Bob Mould album Workbook, which is still his best solo album, best post-Husker Du record, it's better than any of the Sugar records, it's better than anything he's done, frankly. Even the newer Bob Mould stuff, Workbook is the shit. It does have a lot of similarities to Richard Thompson. I don't think Richard Thompson ever gets quite as intense as Bob Mould on like Whichever Way the Wind Blows or whatever, but I do definitely see the influence, and I could see for a second there why he was nervous, but so I guess what I'm trying to say is, in a long-winded fashion, if you do like Bob Mould Workbook and you're unfamiliar with Richard Thompson, you might want to try this album. I paid $8 for it used. It's in good shape. Still got the original sleeve with the lyrics and everything. Because, again, I just don't see this Richard Thompson record, especially, out in the wild. And if you are trying to get into this artist, the stuff when he was still married to Linda Thompson is easily his best stuff. Okay, and then the last sort of used thing I found was the same trip to Half Price Books. I saw this collection of Juliana Hatfield. It's 2 albums from the year 2000. She did Beautiful Creature and Juliana's Pony, Total System Failure. She did 2 albums at the same time. She put both CDs in this little package. I've already owned the albums myself digitally, so this is the first time I've had them in an actual format. I didn't get them at the time. It was sort of like I had a free subscription to eMusic, so I downloaded the albums. So it's good to have. It also came with a 3rd disc, which is an enhanced disc with videos. And for those of you not old enough to remember the early 2000s, that was like a huge deal on CDs with putting an enhanced CD. And so then you could put it in your computer and it would like open up a program and play a video.
Hi, I'm Britney Spears, and welcome to my enhanced CD. In here, you'll find my music video, Baby One More Time, some interviews, and a lot of fun pictures.
These last 3 CDs, let's see here. Well, okay, let's first do this one. This is the Soundgarden Ultra Mega OK, the new reissue on Sub Pop. Okay, now I still have my original vinyl of Ultra Mega OK, released on SST back in 1988. My problem with this album is, I love Soundgarden, always have. I'm seeing them in a couple weeks, I can't wait. Is that this album always sounded so thin and shitty. And when they did their next album, Louder Than Love, it just packed such a huge punch. It was like, what happened here? Well, I don't know what I thought, but basically, some of those problems are rectified on this new remastering. They have really taken the time that maybe SST didn't take in 1988 or didn't have the money to do, and made it bulked it up a little bit. It just sounds better. They didn't go back in the studio and fix anything. They just toughened up the sound a little bit. I think it's great. It also comes with something called the Ultra Mega EP, which is bonus tracks, early versions of the songs from that record. So if you like the really early Soundgarden before like Black Hole Sun and all that, you might want to look into this. These next 3 CDs I'm going to show real briefly are new releases that I've gotten for the show that I think are great. The first one here is Father John Misty's new album, Pure Comedy. I've seen a number of people in the VC showing their vinyl. And again, since I got it free, it's hard to justify going to pay for it. But it is in this slipcase. I am a huge fan of Father John Misty. I love this man's music. I don't get it. I don't get him. I think he's a total fucking weirdo.
And so nature, she devised this alternative. We emerge half-formed in hope whoever greets us on.
And I don't understand his perspective or what he's trying to do, or is this a persona? Because it's not his name. He's not a father. He's not a priest. He was Josh Tillman for 10 years, made a bunch of albums under his own name. Then he was the drummer for the Fleet Foxes, a band I have no interest in. And so when I heard there was a new guy, Father John Misty, who was the drummer of the Fleet Foxes, my initial thought was, who gives a shit? Okay? But then I heard it, the Fear Fun album, phenomenal. And then I Love You Honey Bear, which was, again, he said this is a bunch of love songs, and I'm like, oh God, do I want to hear some indie rock dude do a bunch of... Dude, it was so good. And now this new album is sort of a take on modern society, on how people are so shitty to one another, and how just nobody's nice to anybody anymore, and nobody's real, and nobody's sincere, and all of this. And it's like, it really does kind of hit home at a time, and living in the Trump era, I totally get it, although I don't totally understand all his lyrical references and stuff. But again, Father John Misty, Pure Comedy, it's maybe going to be album of the year. It's fucking phenomenal. Another band appearing at this year's Maha, the New Pornographers. Here's their newest, Whiteout Conditions. Again, I got it as the CD. This is the band featuring AC Newman, Nico Case, Dan Behar of Destroyer, a number of other people. It's a super group. Indie rock. I got into Nico Case because of New Pornographers, because I heard the New Pornographers debut album, and she sang that song Letter from an Occupant on it, and I was like, this woman's voice is so fucking good. I went back and I got the Nico Case. Nico Case, again, prominently featured on a couple of tracks, but she's not the leader of this band. It is A.C. Newman's band, but it is great. Again, I can't think of a bad song on here. There's just varying degrees of good. So this is the new one from Whiteout Conditions. It's good. Indie pop, well sung, well produced. And then last would be this band from London called Happiness. And this is their new album called Right In. Okay? These guys are kind of a noise, shoegaze, fuzzed out indie pop band. I've talked about them before. They're on Bar None Records. This is their third album. It's really, really good. It's been growing on me big time. So, I don't know. That's all I got for you today. Take care, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.